The sound of piano keys echoed through the small apartment as May finished the last notes of Chopin's Nocturne. Her fingers, calloused from years of playing and hours of scrubbing dishes at the local diner, finally stilled on the ivory keys. The old upright piano was the only thing of value she had kept after Tom left 3 years ago. It wasn't worth much money, but to May it was priceless. "Mom, are you done practicing? Can we eat dinner now?" Her son Liam called from the tiny kitchen where he was supposed to be finishing his homework. "Just 5 more minutes, honey," May answered, glancing at the clock on the wall. It was already past 7, and she still had to prepare their meal, help Liam with his math problems, and iron her uniform for tomorrow's early shift. Time was a luxury May couldn't afford. Neither was sleep, apparently. Most days she ran on coffee and determination, working 2 jobs to keep a roof over their heads. By day, she served plates of eggs and pancakes at Rosie's diner, and 3 evenings a week she cleaned offices in the downtown business district. The tips at Rosie's were decent, especially from the regulars who appreciated her warm smile despite her obvious exhaustion. But they weren't enough to cover rent, utilities, and Liam's growing needs. The piano had once been her ticket to a different life. May had studied music in college, dreaming of concert halls and standing ovations. She had been good, very good, according to her professors. But then she met Tom during her final year, fell in love, and soon Liam came along. The dreams of becoming a concert pianist faded as diapers and midnight feedings took priority. She had no regrets about becoming a mother. Liam was the light of her life, but sometimes in quiet moments like this she wondered what might have been. "Can I have mac and cheese?" Liam appeared in the doorway, math worksheet in hand, his dark hair falling into his eyes. At 8 years old he was already showing signs of his father's height, but his kind eyes and gentle nature were all May. "We had that yesterday," May smiled, closing her sheet music. "How about stir-fry with those vegetables we need to use up?" Liam made a face but nodded. He knew better than to complain about food. Even at his young age, he understood their situation. It broke May's heart sometimes, seeing how quickly he had learned to want less, to never ask for new toys or brand-name clothes like his classmates had. The apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms in a building that had seen better days. The wallpaper in the living room was peeling at the corners, and the bathroom faucet had a persistent drip that the landlord had promised to fix months ago. But it was clean, and it was theirs, and May made it feel like home with colorful throws on the worn furniture and framed pictures of Liam growing up. As she cooked dinner, May thought about the community center where she taught beginner piano lessons every Saturday. The director, Fiona, had approached her 6 months ago after overhearing May play the old piano in the recreation room. The pay wasn't much, just $10 per half-hour lesson, but it was something, and more importantly, it kept her connected to music. "Did Ms. Wilson like your science project?" May asked as they sat down to eat. "Yeah, she put it on the display table and everything," Liam said, his face brightening. "She said my solar system had the best details in the class. That's wonderful. I told you all that hard work would pay off." May reached across to ruffle his hair. The solar system project had been a challenge, crafting planets from things they had around the house and items from the dollar store. May had stayed up until midnight helping him paint the styrofoam balls to look like planets. After dinner, while Liam showered, May sat at the kitchen table with a stack of bills and her checkbook. Electricity was due next week and Liam needed new shoes. His current pair had holes forming at the toes. She sighed, calculating and recalculating, trying to stretch her last paycheck further than it could go. This was the part of single parenthood that exhausted her most, the constant math problem of survival. She had applied for a position at the music store in the mall, hoping to pick up weekend hours. They hadn't called back yet. Her phone buzzed with a text from Fiona. 2 new students signed up for Saturday. "Can you take 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. slots?" May quickly texted back a yes. 2 more students meant an extra $20, enough for Liam's shoes if she found a sale. Later that night, after tucking Liam into bed and reading him a chapter from his favorite adventure book, May returned to the piano. She played softly, mindful of the neighbors and her sleeping son. The music was her therapy, the only thing that helped her process the day's stresses and find peace. Tomorrow would bring another day of serving coffee to rushed commuters and plates of food to hungry customers. Her feet would ache and her smile would sometimes feel forced. But for now in this moment her fingers danced across the keys and she was transported to a world where beauty existed purely for its own sake. Friday morning came too quickly. May's alarm buzzed at 5 a.m. and she dragged herself out of bed to prepare for her shift at the diner. She gently woke Liam at 6, helping him get ready for the before-school program that allowed her to drop him off early enough to make it to work by 7. "Don't forget your library books," she reminded him, pouring cereal into his bowl. "They're due back today." "I know, Mom." Liam yawned, still half asleep. "And today's pizza day in the cafeteria." May nodded, placing the lunch money on the counter. It was tight, but she always made sure Liam got the special lunch on Fridays. It was their small tradition, a tiny luxury in a week of homemade sandwiches. The morning rush at Rosie's was particularly hectic. A tour bus had stopped unexpectedly, filling the diner with hungry travelers wanting quick service. May moved efficiently between tables, taking orders, refilling coffee cups, and delivering plates of steaming food. "You're a lifesaver, Jerry." The cook called from the kitchen window as May grabbed 4 plates at once. "Don't know how you do it." She gave him a quick smile before hurrying back to her section. The truth was, she didn't know how she did it either sometimes. Sheer necessity, perhaps. By the end of her shift, her tips were better than usual, and her manager had mentioned that they might need someone to cover additional hours next week. Good news all around, but May's mind was already on tomorrow's lessons at the community center. The center was a 15-minute bus ride from their apartment, located in a neighborhood that had seen better days. The building itself was old, originally a school from the 1950s, now repurposed to serve the community with after-school programs, senior activities, and various classes taught by volunteers and minimally paid instructors like May. The piano in the music room had seen better days too. It was a Baldwin upright, probably once a beautiful instrument, but now several keys stuck and it hadn't been properly tuned in years. Still, May had developed a knack for working around its quirks, showing her students which keys to press more firmly and which to approach gently. Her last student on Friday evening was a retired postal worker named Hank, who had always wanted to learn piano. At 67, his fingers weren't as nimble as he'd like, but his enthusiasm made up for it. "I practiced every day this week," he announced proudly, as he sat down on the bench. "My wife says she can almost recognize Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star now." May laughed. "That's progress. Let's hear it." As Hank carefully picked out the simple tune, May noticed Fiona watching from the doorway. The center director gave her a thumbs up and mouthed, "My office after?" May nodded, curious. When the lesson ended, May found Fiona sorting through a box of donated art supplies. "There you are," Fiona said, pushing her glasses up her nose. "Listen, I wanted to ask if you'd be interested in an opportunity. The center received a small grant for arts programming, and I'd like to offer a group music appreciation class for the kids in our after-school program. It would be once a week, Wednesdays from 4 to 5. We can pay $15 an hour." May's heart leapt. An extra hour of guaranteed work each week would help tremendously. "I'd love to," she said. "What age group?" 8 to 12-year-olds. Nothing fancy, just introducing them to different musical styles. Maybe some basic rhythm exercises, that sort of thing. "I can definitely do that," May said, already mentally planning activities. "Perfect. We'll start next week. Oh, and I almost forgot. The maintenance guy is coming tomorrow to look at the piano. No promises, but I requested a tuning in the budget." Walking home, May felt lighter than she had in weeks. The extra income from the new class wasn't life-changing, but it was a step in the right direction. And the thought of working with children, introducing them to the joy of music, filled her with purpose. As she unlocked their apartment door, she found Liam and Mrs. Chen, their elderly neighbor who watched him after school, making paper airplanes at the kitchen table. "This boy is an engineer in the making," Mrs. Chen said, admiring Liam's complex folding technique. "He showed me how to make one that spins as it flies." "Thanks for watching him," May said, handing Mrs. Chen the usual $5. The woman tried to refuse, as she often did, but May insisted. It was the best childcare arrangement she could afford, and Mrs. Chen could use the money too, living on a fixed income. That night, as Liam slept, May sat by the window looking out at the city lights. Tomorrow would bring new students, new challenges, and perhaps new opportunities. The road ahead was still difficult. One small, grant-funded class wouldn't solve all their financial problems. But for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of hope that things might be turning around. She returned to her piano, playing softly in the darkness. The melody was her own composition, something she'd been working on in stolen moments between shifts and responsibilities. In another life, perhaps it might have been performed in a concert hall. In this life, it was her private rebellion against circumstance, proof that beauty could exist even in the hardest times. May didn't know it yet, but this weekend at the community center would bring an unexpected encounter that would change everything. For now, though, she simply played, letting the music say everything her tired heart couldn't put into words. Saturday morning at the community center was always May's favorite time of the week. Despite the early start and the extra hours added to her already packed schedule, these were the hours when she felt most like herself. Not a waitress, not a cleaning lady, but a musician, sharing what she loved. The community center hummed with weekend activity. In the gym, a youth basketball program was underway, the squeak of sneakers and enthusiastic shouts echoing down the hallway. The art room across from May's music space was hosting a pottery class, and the lobby was being set up for a community health screening later that afternoon. May arranged sheet music for her first student, a bright-eyed 10-year-old named Zoe, who had been taking lessons for 3 months. The door to the music room stood open, allowing the sounds of her warm-up scales to drift into the corridor. Her fingers moved automatically across the keys while her mind reviewed the teaching plans for her 2 new students. The Baldwin piano was still out of tune, but the maintenance man had at least fixed the sticky keys yesterday afternoon. "Miss May," Zoe appeared in the doorway, her lesson book clutched to her chest. "I practiced the whole song this week." "That's wonderful," May smiled, gesturing to the bench beside her. "Let's hear how it sounds." As Zoe settled in and began playing a simplified version of Fur-Elise, May noticed a commotion in the hallway. A young girl was crying. No, not just crying, but seemingly in the middle of a full-blown panic attack. Her sobs were punctuated by gasping breaths, and a woman in a neat gray dress was trying unsuccessfully to calm her down. "It's okay. Just breathe, sweetie," the woman was saying, her voice strained. "Your father will be back in an hour, remember? He just had to go to that meeting." The girl only cried harder, her face red and tear-streaked. She looked about 12, with long dark hair pulled back in a neat braid and wearing what appeared to be an expensive private school uniform. The woman, clearly some sort of caretaker, looked increasingly distressed. "Zoe, keep practicing that section," May said, rising from the bench. "I'll be right back." In the hallway, May approached the pair carefully. "Is everything all right? Can I help somehow?" The caretaker looked up, relief washing over her face at the offer of assistance. "Oh, thank you. We're having a difficult moment. This is Elena's first time coming to the community center for the art class, and I think she's feeling overwhelmed." The girl, Elena, had backed herself against the wall, her breathing coming in short, sharp gasps. Her eyes were wide with panic, darting around as if searching for escape. "I'm May," she said softly, addressing Elena directly rather than talking over her head. "Would you like to come sit in the music room for a minute? It's quieter in there." Elena didn't respond verbally, but her eyes fixed on May's face, which seemed like progress. "She hasn't been speaking much lately," the caretaker explained in a low voice. "Not since her mother. Well, it's been a difficult few months." May nodded in understanding. "What's your name?" she asked the caretaker. "Nancy. I'm Elena's nanny. Her father hired me after—" She trailed off. Glancing at the girl, May turned back to Elena. "I'm giving piano lessons right now, but you're welcome to come in and just sit for a bit if the noise out here is too much." The girl's breathing had slowed slightly, though tears still streamed down her face. After a moment's hesitation, she gave a tiny nod. "Is that okay, Nancy?" May asked. "Yes, anything that helps." "I'll wait right outside," Nancy replied, visibly relieved. Back in the music room, Zoe looked up curiously as May returned with Elena. "Zoe, this is Elena. She's going to sit with us for a little while, if that's okay with you." Zoe nodded, always happy to have an audience. Elena slipped into a folding chair in the corner of the room, drawing her knees up to her chest. "Let's continue with your piece," May said to Zoe, returning to the piano bench. As Zoe resumed playing, May kept one eye on Elena. The girl's posture remained tense, but her breathing was steadier now. When Zoe finished her piece, May took over the keyboard. "This is something I've been working on myself," she explained, positioning her hands. "It's called Clair de Lune by Debussy. The title means moonlight in French. May began to play, the delicate, flowing melody filling the small room. Despite the piano's imperfections, the piece retained its dreamy, ethereal quality. May closed her eyes briefly, letting the music transport her, her fingers finding the familiar patterns without conscious thought. When she opened her eyes again, she noticed that Elena's posture had changed. The girl's arms had relaxed, no longer wrapped tightly around her knees. Her gaze was fixed on May's hands as they moved across the keys, and though tears still glistened on her cheeks, the panic had faded from her expression. The lesson with Zoe continued, and by the end Elena had uncurled completely, sitting normally in the chair, occasionally wiping at her face with her sleeve. "That was great work today. Zoe," May said as they finished, "remember to practice that tricky section we talked about." As Zoe packed up her music, Nancy appeared in the doorway. "How are we doing?" she asked gently. To everyone's surprise, Elena stood up and walked to the piano. She didn't speak, but she ran her fingers lightly over the keys, pressing one softly to hear its tone. "Do you play, Elena?" May asked. The girl shook her head. "Would you like to try?" A small nod. "We need to go soon," Nancy said apologetically. "Elena's father will be picking us up and he's very punctual." "Maybe next time," May suggested. She turned to Elena. "The music room is usually open on Saturday afternoons. You're welcome to come back if you'd like." For the first time, a ghost of a smile appeared on Elena's face. After they left, May had 10 minutes before her next student. She sat at the piano, thoughtful. There had been something about the girl's reaction to the music that touched her. Perhaps recognition of a kindred spirit, someone else who found solace in melodies when words failed. Her next 2 lessons went well. The new students were both adults, a college student wanting to impress his girlfriend with a romantic song, and a grandmother who had always regretted not learning as a child. May enjoyed the variety of students, each bringing different needs and goals to their lessons. She was practicing between appointments when Nancy reappeared at the door, this time without Elena. "I wanted to thank you," the nanny said, stepping into the room. "That's the calmest I've seen her in weeks. Her father had an unexpected business meeting, so we ended up at the center earlier than planned, and I think the change in routine triggered her anxiety." "I'm glad the music helped," May replied. "Has she been having panic attacks often?" Nancy hesitated, then sighed. "Since her mother passed away 6 months ago, yes. Elena was there when it happened, a car accident. She hasn't spoken more than a few words since." She lowered her voice further. "Her father's been, well, he's dealing with his own grief. He's a good man, just very focused on his work. That's his way of coping, I think." "I'm so sorry," May said, her heart aching for the child. "Mr. Wu hired me to take care of Elena's day-to-day needs. But what she really needs is—" Nancy trailed off. "Looking at the piano. Connection," May supplied. "Something that speaks to her without requiring words." "Exactly," Nancy smiled sadly. "Anyway, I was wondering if it would be all right if we came back next Saturday. Not for a formal lesson, just to listen." "Of course," May said without hesitation. "I'm here most of the day between 9 and 3. The following Saturday, Elena and Nancy returned. This time, the girl came prepared with a sketchbook and colored pencils. She sat in the same corner chair, drawing quietly while May taught her regular students. During breaks, May would play pieces she thought Elena might enjoy, Chopin's softer nocturnes, some Schumann, even simplified versions of popular songs. Sometimes Elena would look up from her drawing to watch, and occasionally that small, hesitant smile would reappear. It became a routine. Every Saturday, Elena would arrive with Nancy and spend hours in the music room. She never spoke, but May noticed she was drawing more landscapes, less of the dark scribbles that had filled the early pages of her sketchbook. Once, May caught a glimpse of a drawing that looked like the piano itself, with musical notes floating above it. Fiona, the center director, didn't mind the arrangement. "That poor kid needs all the support she can get," she said when May explained the situation. "Besides, it's not like we're turning away paying customers for that chair." May's new weekly music appreciation class had started as well, and to her surprise, Elena began attending, sitting at the back of the room while the other children learned about different instruments and musical traditions. Though she never participated verbally, May noticed she was always the first to pick up the rhythm when they did drumming activities. 3 Saturdays into their silent arrangement, something unexpected happened. May was alone in the music room during lunch, playing one of her own compositions, something melancholy but hopeful that she'd been working on late at night after Liam went to bed. She was so absorbed in the music that she didn't notice Elena had slipped into the room until she finished the piece. "That's pretty," came a soft voice. May turned, startled. Elena stood by the piano, her sketchbook clutched to her chest. "Thank you," May said carefully, trying not to make too much of this breakthrough. "I wrote it myself. Could you play it again?" Elena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course." As May played, Elena moved closer, eventually settling on the far end of the piano bench. When the piece ended, she opened her sketchbook and showed May a drawing. A night landscape with a full moon reflecting on water, remarkably similar to the feeling May had tried to capture in her composition. "That's beautiful," May said. "It matches the music perfectly." Elena nodded, a real smile briefly illuminating her face before she retreated back into silence. When Nancy came to collect her that afternoon, May quietly mentioned the breakthrough. The nanny's eyes widened. "That's the first time she's spoken to anyone except me since the accident," she whispered. "Her father will be so pleased." But as the weeks passed, May never saw Elena's father. The girl continued to visit, gradually speaking more, though only to May and only about music. Nancy explained that Mr. Wu was always busy with meetings or traveling for business. He arranged everything for Elena through phone calls and emails, never setting foot in the community center himself. May often wondered about this absent father, this man who could afford a full-time nanny, but couldn't seem to find time for his traumatized daughter. She kept her thoughts to herself, however, focusing on what she could offer, a safe space where music could help heal what words couldn't reach. What May didn't know was that her life was about to intersect with Elena's father in a way she never could have anticipated, setting in motion changes that would transform both their worlds completely. Spring was giving way to summer, bringing longer days and warmer temperatures to the city. For May, the changing season meant Liam would soon be out of school, creating a new challenge in her carefully balanced life. Summer childcare was expensive, and she couldn't afford the camps and programs many of his classmates would attend. At the diner, May poured coffee for the morning regulars while mulling over her options. Mrs. Chen had offered to watch Liam some days, but the elderly woman couldn't manage full-time childcare. The community center had a summer program, but even with their sliding scale fees, it would strain her budget. "You look worried today," said Hank, her piano student who also happened to be a breakfast regular. "Everything okay?" May forced a smile. "Just planning for summer. It always gets complicated with school out." "You know," Hank said, stirring sugar into his coffee. "My daughter runs that bookstore over on Pine Street. She mentioned needing help with their summer reading program for kids. Might be something your boy would enjoy, and maybe they'd let him join for free if you help out." "That's a great idea," May said, making a mental note to stop by the bookstore on her next day off. This was how she cobbled together her life. One suggestion, one opportunity, one favor at a time. Saturday arrived, and with it, the now familiar sight of Elena and Nancy at the community center. Over the past month, Elena had begun to open up more, occasionally asking questions about the music May played or commenting on a particular piece she enjoyed. They were small steps but significant ones. "Good morning," May greeted them as they entered the music room. "I have something special planned today." Elena looked interested, setting her sketchbook on a nearby table. "I thought we might try a duet," May explained, patting the space next to her on the piano bench. "Nothing complicated. You can play these same two notes over and over while I play the melody. Would you like to try?" Elena hesitated but nodded, sitting carefully beside May. Nancy watched from the doorway, a smile playing on her lips. "Just these two," May demonstrated, placing Elena's fingers on the keys. Like a heartbeat. They began slowly, Elena's part steady and repetitive, while May wove a simple melody above it. The girl's face was a study in concentration, but as they continued, a small smile emerged. "Perfect," May said when they finished. "You're a natural." For the first time, Elena looked truly proud of herself. "I used to take piano lessons," she said softly, surprising both May and Nancy. "Before..." She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. "Before the accident. Before losing her mother. Would you like to learn again?" May asked carefully. Elena traced the edge of a piano key with her finger. "Maybe." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either, and coming from Elena, it felt like a breakthrough. Nancy caught May's eye over the girl's head, mouthing a silent, "Thank you." Later that afternoon, after her regular students had gone, May sat with Elena while Nancy stepped out to take a phone call. "My dad used to play," Elena said unexpectedly, looking at the piano rather than at May. "He did? Does he still?" Elena shook her head. "Not since Mom died. He doesn't do anything except work now." The matter-of-fact way she said it broke May's heart. "Sometimes," she said carefully, "when people are sad, they forget how to do things that used to make them happy." "He's not sad," Elena countered. "He's just busy. Very, very busy. All the time." Before May could respond, Nancy returned, looking flustered. "I'm so sorry, but we need to go," she said. "Your father's coming home early from his trip, and he wants to have dinner with you." Elena's expression brightened. "Really, he promised?" "Yes, he specifically asked me to have you home by 6. As they gathered Elena's things, May saw a mixture of hope and doubt on the girl's face. She wondered how many times Elena's father had made, and broken, similar promises. "See you next Saturday?" May asked. Elena nodded, suddenly shy again. "Could we do another duet?" "I'd love that. I'll find something special for us to play." After they left, May cleaned up the music room and headed home, stopping at the bookstore Hank had mentioned. The owner was welcoming and enthusiastic about having Liam join their summer program in exchange for May helping a few hours each week. One problem solved, at least temporarily. The following Wednesday, during her music appreciation class, May was surprised to see Elena slip into the back row. The class was for younger children, but no one seemed to mind the quiet older girl joining them. They were learning about percussion instruments that day. May had brought in a collection of drums, shakers, and bells for the children to try. "Music is everywhere," she told the group, "even in things that aren't instruments. Listen." She tapped out rhythms on the table, the floor, the side of a chair. The children giggled and joined in, discovering the different sounds they could make with ordinary objects. Elena watched, and though she didn't participate with the younger children, May noticed her tapping her fingers silently against her leg, following the rhythms. After class, while the other children were being picked up, Elena approached May's desk. "My dad didn't come home for dinner," she said without preamble. May's heart sank. "I'm sorry to hear that. Nancy said there was an emergency at work. There's always an emergency." Elena traced a pattern on the desktop with her finger. "He left me a present, though. A keyboard. It's electronic and you can plug in headphones so no one hears you practice." "And that's a wonderful gift," May said. Elena nodded. "I think he feels bad about being busy all the time." The conversation was interrupted as Nancy appeared at the door. "There you are. I was looking all over. I thought you were in the art room." "I wanted to see Miss May," Elena explained, a hint of defiance in her voice. "Well, next time tell me where you're going," Nancy said, but her tone was gentle. "We need to get home now." As they left, May found herself thinking about Elena's absent father, a man who bought expensive electronic keyboards but couldn't make it to dinner with his daughter. A man who hired a kind, capable nanny but didn't seem to realize that what Elena really needed was his presence, not his presence. Saturday arrived, and with it came a surprise. Elena showed up at her usual time but without Nancy. "My Uncle Ren brought me today," she explained. "Nancy has a doctor's appointment. Uncle Ren is waiting in the lobby." May was curious about this relative she hadn't heard mentioned before, but she focused on their planned duet. Elena had been practicing on her new keyboard, and it showed. Her confidence had grown, and she was ready for something a little more challenging. They were midway through the piece when May noticed a man standing in the doorway. Tall and impeccably dressed in what was clearly an expensive suit, he watched them with an unreadable expression. Elena hadn't noticed him yet, her attention fixed on the keys in front of her. May continued playing, not wanting to interrupt their progress, but she found herself distracted by the observer. There was something in his stance, the way he held himself perfectly still, that suggested intense emotions held rigidly in check. When they finished, Elena looked up with a smile that quickly faded as she spotted the man. "Uncle Ren," she said, her voice small again. "Is it time to go already?" The man stepped into the room. "Not yet. I just wanted to see what you were doing." His voice was deep and smooth, his English perfect but with the faintest hint of an accent. Please don't stop on my account. May stood and extended her hand. I'm May. I teach piano here at the center. Ren Wu, he replied, shaking her hand briefly. Elena's uncle. My brother asked me to bring her today. Up close, May could see the family resemblance between him and Elena. The same straight nose, the same thoughtful eyes. He was younger than she'd initially thought, probably in his mid-30s, with an intensity about him that was almost intimidating. You play beautifully, he said to May. Self-taught? No, I studied music in college, she replied, surprised by the question. He nodded as if confirming something to himself. And now you teach at a community center. There was no judgment in his tone, just observation, but May felt a flicker of defensiveness anyway. Yes, among other things. Elena had retreated into silence, watching the exchange with wary eyes. We still have 15 minutes left in our lesson, May said, turning back to the girl. Would you like to continue? Elena nodded. I'll wait outside, Ren said, his gaze lingering on the piano before he left. The rest of the lesson was stilted, Elena's newfound confidence diminished by her uncle's appearance. When they finished, she packed up her sheet music without her usual comments or questions. Same time next week? May asked. I think so, Elena said, if Dad doesn't have other plans for me. In the hallway, Ren was waiting, typing something on an expensive-looking phone. He looked up as they approached. All finished? Elena nodded. Thank you for the lesson, he said to May, formal and polite. My brother will be pleased to hear about Elena's progress. As they walked away, May heard Elena ask, Is Dad really coming home tonight? That's what he told me, Ren replied, placing a gentle hand on his niece's shoulder. May watched them go, wondering about the dynamics of this family. The workaholic father, the supportive uncle, and the grieving child caught between them. She hoped, for Elena's sake, that her father would keep his promise this time. What May didn't know was that her brief encounter with Ren Wu had set wheels in motion. The following week would bring a visitor to the community center who would change the course of her life and Elena's forever. The following Saturday arrived, with heavy rain that drummed against the community center's roof. The weather had kept many people away, making the building unusually quiet. May arrived early, shaking water from her umbrella in the lobby. She had brought Liam with her today. Mrs. Chen had a doctor's appointment, and May couldn't afford a sitter for the few hours she'd be teaching. Can I play in the game room? Liam asked, eyeing the foosball table visible through an open door. As long as you check in with me every half hour, May agreed. And don't disturb anyone. Liam ran off happily while May headed to the music room, her thoughts turning to Elena. After meeting the girl's uncle last week, she'd been curious about whether Elena would return, and if so, who would accompany her. There was something about Ren Wu that had unsettled her, not in a threatening way, but in the sense that he seemed to be evaluating her, measuring her against some unknown standard. The morning passed quietly. 2 students canceled because of the rain, giving May unexpected free time. She used it to practice a piece she'd been working on for weeks, losing herself in the music while the storm raged outside. She was so absorbed that she didn't notice the figure standing in the doorway until she reached the end of the piece. When she looked up, her hand still resting on the keys, she was startled to see a man watching her. For a moment, she thought it might be Ren Wu, but this man was older, with lines of exhaustion or worry etched around his eyes. He wore a tailored suit that even May, with her limited knowledge of men's fashion, could tell was expensive. His hair was cut in a precise style, graying slightly at the temples. Elena's features were clearly visible in his face. Mr. Wu, May guessed, standing up from the piano bench. The man looked surprised. You know who I am? I've met your brother, and Elena looks like you, she explained. I'm May. I've been working with your daughter on Saturday mornings. He nodded, stepping further into the room. Jin Wu, he said, offering his hand. His handshake was firm, businesslike. I've heard a great deal about you from Elena, and from Ren, who was quite impressed last week. May wasn't sure how to respond to that. Elena is a joy to work with, she said. She has natural musical talent. Like her mother, Jin said, a flash of something, grief perhaps, crossing his face before his expression became neutral again. I apologize for not coming sooner to meet you. My schedule has been busy, May finished for him. Elena mentioned that. A flicker of discomfort showed in his eyes. Yes, running a company leaves little room for personal time. He glanced at the piano. What was that piece you were playing? Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, May replied. It's one of my favorites. My wife loved Chopin, Jin said quietly. He walked to the piano, running his fingers lightly over the top. This instrument has seen better days. It has character, May said, slightly defensive of the old Baldwin. Jin's mouth twitched in what might have been the beginning of a smile. A diplomatic way of saying it's out of tune and probably has sticky keys. Before May could respond, Liam appeared in the doorway. Mom, can I have $1 for the vending machine? He asked, then stopped when he noticed Jin. Liam, this is Mr. Wu, May said. He's Elena's father. Oh, Liam said. The girl who doesn't talk much. She's nice, though. She showed me how to draw a dragon last week. Jin looked surprised. Elena was drawing with you? Yeah, while Mom was teaching her other student, Liam explained. I was bored and she let me sit with her. She draws really good. A complicated expression crossed Jin's face. Surprise, perhaps, or realization. May wondered if he knew how much his daughter had begun to come out of her shell these past weeks. Here's $1, May said, digging in her purse. Please get something with at least a little nutritional value. Granola bar, Liam promised before disappearing down the hall. Your son? Jin asked. May nodded. He's 8. Elena mentioned him. She said he was funny. The fact that Elena talked about them at home made May unexpectedly happy. Where is Elena today? She asked. With Nancy at her art class down the hall. I had a rare free morning and thought I should finally see this place for myself. Jin looked around the modest room with its mismatched chairs and ancient piano. It's not what I expected. What did you expect? I'm not sure, he admitted. Something less real, perhaps. Before May could decipher what he meant by that, Elena appeared in the doorway, her face lighting up when she saw her father. Dad, you came. She rushed to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Jin's expression softened as he embraced his daughter, and May caught a glimpse of the man beneath the polished business exterior. I promised I would, he said, smoothing Elena's hair. Are you going to stay for my lesson? Elena asked, looking up at him with hope shining in her eyes. Jin hesitated, glancing at his expensive watch. I have a video conference at noon. Elena's face fell slightly, though she tried to hide it. But, Jin continued, apparently having seen her disappointment, I suppose they can wait 15 minutes. I am the boss, after all. The smile that bloomed on Elena's face was like sunshine breaking through clouds. You can hear the duet Miss May and I have been practicing. I'd like that, Jin said, his voice gentler than May had heard it yet. Nancy appeared behind Elena, looking slightly flustered. I'm sorry, Mr. Wu, she ran ahead when she saw you. It's fine, Nancy, Jin assured her. I'll stay for Elena's lesson. You can take a break if you'd like. As Nancy left, May and Elena took their places at the piano. Jin sat in one of the folding chairs, his tall frame looking out of place in the humble setting. Ready? May asked Elena. The girl nodded, more confident than May had ever seen her. They began the duet they'd been practicing, a simplified arrangement of Beethoven's Ode to Joy, where Elena played a more substantial part than in their previous efforts. As they played, May was acutely aware of Jin watching them, his gaze intense and unreadable. Elena, too, seemed to feel her father's presence. She sat straighter, concentrated harder, her small fingers moving across the keys with determination. When they finished, Jin applauded softly. Beautiful, he said, and May couldn't tell if he was speaking to his daughter or about the music itself. Elena beamed. I practiced on my keyboard every day. I can tell, Jin said. Your mother would be very proud. At the mention of her mother, Elena's smile dimmed slightly, but she didn't retreat into silence as she once might have. She loved this song, she said quietly. Jin nodded, a shadow passing over his features. She did. For a moment, father and daughter looked at each other, sharing something private and painful and precious. May felt like an intruder and turned away, straightening sheet music to give them space. Perhaps, Jin said after a moment, we should get a real piano for the house. The keyboard is fine for practice, but nothing compares to the real thing. Really? Elena's eyes widened. Really, Jin confirmed. He glanced at his watch and sighed. I'm sorry, but I need to go now. Business calls. Elena's disappointment was visible but less intense than May might have expected. The promise of a piano seemed to have softened the blow. I understand, she said with the peculiar maturity that sometimes surfaced in her. Thank you for coming, Dad. Jin knelt down to her level, a gesture that seemed unpracticed, as if he was just learning how to physically relate to his daughter. I'll be home for dinner tonight. No emergencies, no meetings. I promise. Elena nodded, clearly wanting to believe him but afraid to hope too much. Jin kissed her forehead before standing and turning to May. Thank you, he said simply, for what you've done for Elena. It's been my pleasure, May replied honestly. Jin reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card, handing it to her. If you ever need anything, he said, please don't hesitate to call. May glanced at the card and nearly gasped. Jin Woo was the CEO of Woo Technologies, one of the largest tech companies in the city. She'd seen their gleaming office tower downtown but had never connected it to Elena's father. Before she could respond, Jin was gone, leaving behind only the lingering scent of expensive cologne and a business card that felt impossibly heavy in May's hand. He liked our playing, Elena said, still sitting at the piano bench. He never likes anything anymore. The simple statement held volumes about life in the Woo household these past months. May sat back down beside her. Sometimes, she said carefully, when people lose someone they love, they forget how to enjoy things. But they can remember again with help. Elena nodded solemnly, like how I didn't want to talk, but then I did because of the music. Exactly like that. Do you think Dad will really get a piano? I think he wants to make you happy, May said diplomatically, unsure if the busy executive would follow through on his impulsive promise. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have guessed, was that Jin Woo never made promises lightly, not even impulsive ones. And his brief visit to the community center had set in motion thoughts and plans that would soon change everything for both May and Elena. As Elena continued her lesson, moving on to a new piece, neither of them noticed the tall figure that paused briefly in the hallway. Jinwoo stood watching for a moment, his expression thoughtful before he turned and walked away, already reaching for his phone. The following week brought unexpected developments. When May arrived at the community center on Wednesday for her music appreciation class, Fiona was waiting for her with an unusual look of excitement. There you are. Fiona waved her into the office. I've been trying to reach you all morning. Sorry, I was at the diner. What's going on? Fiona handed her an envelope. This came by courier yesterday afternoon. It's addressed to you. May opened the envelope with curious fingers. Inside was a letter on heavy cream-colored paper, with an embossed letterhead, Woo Technologies. Dear Ms. Zhang, it began formally. Following our meeting last Saturday, I would like to discuss a proposal regarding music education at the community center. If convenient, please call my assistant to arrange a meeting at your earliest opportunity. Sincerely, Jin Woo, CEO. A business card was paperclipped to the letter, different from the one Jin had given her directly. This one had the name and direct number of his executive assistant. What does it say? Fiona asked, practically bouncing with curiosity. He wants to meet with me, May said, still processing the formal tone of the letter. Something about music education at the center. Do you know who Jin Woo is? Fiona's eyes were wide. He's one of the wealthiest people in the city. Woo Technologies employs thousands of people. This could be huge for us. I know who he is, May said quietly. He's Elena's father. Fiona looked confused for a moment before recognition dawned. The quiet girl who sits in on your lessons? That's Jin Woo's daughter? May nodded, folding the letter carefully and placing it back in the envelope. I should call, I guess. You should call right now, Fiona urged, pushing her office phone forward. Use my phone. This could be the break the center has been waiting for. May hesitated. Something about the formal tone of the letter made her uneasy. Her interactions with Jin had been brief but personal. He had thanked her for helping his daughter. This letter with its business language felt different. Still, she couldn't deny her curiosity. The call was brief and efficient. Jin's assistant, a woman with a crisp, professional voice, offered May 2 possible meeting times for the following day. May chose the afternoon slot, arranging to meet at the Woo Technologies headquarters downtown after her shift at the diner. What did she say? Fiona asked when May hung up. I'm meeting with him tomorrow at 3, May replied. At his office. This is so exciting. Fiona clapped her hands together. Maybe he wants to fund a music program or donate new instruments. Our grant money is running out and you know how tight the budget is. May nodded, aware of the center's financial challenges. Still, something felt off. Why would a tech CEO be interested in a small community center's music program? Even if his daughter had benefited from it, the formal approach seemed strange. The next day, May stood in front of the Wu Technologies building feeling decidedly out of place. The tower of glass and steel rose 40 stories above the downtown streets, its lobby filled with people in business attire, hurrying purposefully in all directions. She had come directly from her shift at the diner, having barely had time to change out of her uniform into the nicest outfit she owned. A simple navy blue dress she usually saved for parent-teacher conferences. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, but she still felt underdressed compared to the sleek professionals around her. At the reception desk, she gave her name and was immediately directed to an express elevator that required a special keycard from the security guard. It whisked her to the top floor without stopping, the city shrinking below through the glass walls of the elevator car. Jin's assistant met her when the doors opened, a young woman in a perfectly tailored suit who introduced herself as Diane. Mr. Wu is finishing a call, she explained, leading May through a series of elegant corridors. Can I get you anything while you wait? Water, coffee? Water would be nice, thank you, May said, trying not to gape at the original artwork hanging on the walls, or the panoramic views of the city visible through floor-to-ceiling windows. Diane showed her into a waiting area outside Jin's office, returning moments later with a glass of water on a small tray. Mr. Wu shouldn't be long, she assured May before returning to her desk. May sat in one of the leather chairs trying to quiet her nerves. What could Jin possibly want to discuss? The formal setting made it clear this wasn't about Elena's piano lessons. She had been waiting about 10 minutes when the office door opened and Jin emerged, followed by a man in a suit who looked to be about May's age. Thank you for coming in, Dr. Patel, Jin was saying. I'll have legal draw up the paperwork by the end of the week. The man nodded, shaking Jin's hand before departing. Jin turned to May, his expression warming slightly as he recognized her. Ms. Zhang, thank you for coming. Please come in. Jin's office was spacious but not ostentatious, with clean lines and minimal decoration. One wall was entirely glass, offering a breathtaking view of the city and the bay beyond. A small conference table occupied one corner, while Jin's desk dominated the opposite end of the room. Please, have a seat. Jin gestured to a chair across from his desk. May sat, trying to appear more confident than she felt. Thank you for inviting me, she said, though I must admit I'm curious about why. Jin smiled slightly. Direct, I appreciate that. He leaned back in his chair, studying her. First, I wanted to thank you personally for what you've done for Elena. Nancy tells me she's speaking more at home now, not just at the center. She's even playing her keyboard without being prompted. I'm glad to hear that, May said sincerely. Elena is a wonderful girl. Yes, she is, Jin agreed, a fleeting sadness crossing his features. Her mother's death hit us both hard, but Elena, she was there when it happened. The therapists call it trauma-induced selective mutism. For months, nothing seemed to help. And then she found you and your music. May wasn't sure how to respond. Music can reach people when words can't, she said finally. Jin nodded. That's what I want to discuss with you. He pressed a button on his desk phone. Diane, would you bring in the proposal package, please? A moment later, the assistant entered with a folder, placing it in front of Jin before exiting silently. I've been doing some research, Jin said, opening the folder. About you, about the community center, and about music therapy in general. He looked up at May. You have a bachelor's degree in music performance from State University. You graduated with honors, yet you're waiting tables and teaching beginner piano at a community center. May stiffened. I'm a single mother. I do what I need to do to support my son. Of course, Jin said quickly. I didn't mean to imply criticism. Quite the opposite. Your dedication is admirable. He slid a document across the desk. What I'm proposing is a way for you to use your musical talents full-time while earning a proper living. May looked down at the paper. Music Therapy and Education Program, read the heading. Below was an outline for a comprehensive program based at the community center. classes for all ages, individual therapy sessions, performance opportunities, and more. The proposed budget was staggering. "I don't understand," she said, looking up at Jin. "You want to fund a music program at the center?" "I want to create one," Jin corrected. "And I want you to run it, as the full-time salaried director." May stared at him, speechless. "The salary and benefits package is on page 3, Jin continued. "I believe you'll find it competitive. The position would include health insurance, retirement benefits, and educational assistance should you wish to pursue further certifications in music therapy." May turned to page 3 and nearly gasped at the figure listed. It was more than double what she currently earned from all her jobs combined. "Why?" she managed to ask. "Why would you do this?" Jin stood and walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. "For Elena initially," he admitted. "But as I researched the center and the neighborhood it serves, I realized there's a much greater need. Music education programs have been cut from public schools. Children in that area have few creative outlets." He turned to face her. "You have a gift, Ms. Jung. Not just for playing music, but for using it to heal and connect with people. Like you did with my daughter." May looked back down at the proposal, trying to process the life-changing opportunity before her. "This is overwhelming." "Take time to think about it," Jin said. "The proposal includes funding for the program for 5 years, after which we can evaluate its success and continuation." 5 years, May echoed. The security of it almost unimaginable. "There's one more thing," Jin added, returning to his desk. He opened a drawer and removed a small box, placing it in front of May. "A token of my personal gratitude." Confused, May opened the box. Inside was a key. "I had the piano delivered to the center this morning," Jin explained. "A Steinway Grand. I think it will sound better than the old Baldwin, don't you?" Tears sprang to May's eyes before she could stop them. "A Steinway Grand piano at the community center?" It was beyond generous, it was transformative. "Mr. Wu, I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say you'll consider my proposal," he replied. "And please, call me Jin." 3 months later, the newly renovated music room at the community center was filled with children of all ages. The gleaming Steinway grand piano stood in the center, with May seated at the bench. Beside her sat Elena, no longer the silent, withdrawn girl she had once been. "Ready for our duet?" May asked. Elena nodded, smiling at the crowd gathered for the grand opening of the Wu Technologies Music Education Center. In the front row sat Jin, watching his daughter with unmistakable pride. Beside him was Liam, now enrolled in the center's after-school program, where he had discovered a talent for percussion instruments. As they began to play, a piece they had practiced for weeks, May caught Jin's eye. He gave her a small nod, an acknowledgement of how far they had all come since that rainy day when he had first heard her play. May's life had transformed. No more dawn shifts at the diner, no more evening cleaning jobs. Now she spent her days doing what she loved, bringing music to people who needed it, and watching her son thrive in their new, more secure life. Jin, too, had changed. He still ran his company with the same efficiency, but he no longer missed dinners with Elena. Every Saturday he brought her to the center himself, staying to watch her lessons and sometimes even attempting to play a few notes himself. The wall of grief that had separated father and daughter had begun to crumble, note by note. As the final chords of their duet rang out, the audience erupted in applause. Elena beamed, taking May's hand for a bow. This was just the beginning. Music had brought healing to a girl in crisis and opportunity to a struggling mother. And somewhere May liked to think, Elena's mother was listening too, proud of the harmony they had all found together.